Hey guys, so something's really just strongly on my mind this evening. I was literally about to sit down and eat, and I told Fritzy I need to take a few minutes. So I can say this while it's sitting on me as strongly as it is. And, many people are trying to work out where the problem lay. And I am one of them. I have spent vast portions of my life trying to determine what is going wrong with this planet and with this reality. Whilst many others are busy, have been busy, there were many years where I didn't socialize or anything along these lines. I was always studying, always researching, always meditating. And it paid off because that which was singing in my heart is manifest. I mean, within 2 years, I manifest a children's village for the children who I dreamed of having a better life for, who I'd met here. So it's worked. The discipline has worked. And during that time, I always had problems trying to understand why there was so much I couldn't explain, and why there were these people who were treating the world in a way which was completely alien to me about how I felt about the world. And I always called out to God and said, why, God, are they like this? And I came to several realizations, and these are confirmed in predominantly the persons who watch me are Muslim or Christian. These are confirmed in the Christian book, and I know Muslims are instructed to respect the Bible, so at least I know most people might have some understanding of this book. Now, I mentioned recently in my other video about the Nag Hammadi, and in the Nag Hammadi it clearly says that this reality was built by a demigod, a God who was mistaken, a God which is part of the source, the original creator, a child of that original creator, if you will, and was mistaken and in a state of amnesia believed that they were the original creator. And they created this reality believing that they were the only true source, the only God. And they created it using the fingerprints of their father, and the energy and the abilities, some of what their father had. And in doing so, they created this reality whereby we live. Now, there's no contesting that it's very difficult to say a loving God created nature here. Nature is brutal. It is sick and it's sickening. You just need to watch a few wildlife documentaries and begin to ask the question about, was that necessary? Did God really need to make this design as it is, if this God is so loving? This God of love that Jesus served, for example, why did he see it necessary for very small newborn animals to be torn apart in nature? And this always sat heavy with me when I spoke to God. And slowly but surely, God has begun to reveal to me the problems that we face inside this reality may indeed be revealed to all through those scriptures of the Nag Hammadi. Now, you see it in the reflection of the behavior of humans. Humans who are deeply involved in this material world that we live in seem to be deeply corrupted and deeply immoral, and they seem to be so hell-bent on power and on the creation of more power and wealth and systems where they can be more wealthy and more powerful. And this is opposite to the God I serve, and this is opposite to the God that Jesus served. Now, everyone knows the word Satan, and everyone knows what that represents. It does not represent a man with horns and a pointy stick. This is not what Satan represents. It represents the prince of materiality. In Jesus' own words, the prince, not a weakling, not someone who should be laughed at and scoffed at, but the prince, and he used the word the God. In Jesus' words, the God of this world is Satan. The prince of this world is Satan. Now, according to the Nag Hammadi, God from afar saw what his child was doing and realized that the creations within there were suffering and were beginning to suffer. So he began to send his own light down to inhabit the creations that his child had created. And in doing so, he sought for his children to not live in a state of amnesia. And according to the Nag Hammadi, so it was that the serpent is actually an angel of the true source, the true creator of God, who came to tell of the knowledge so as we could understand that he did not want us to suffer as we suffer. Now, I've sat on the fence with this for a long, long time in meditation, and I still do in some respects, because it's a big thing to swallow. But I can't help but see, without doubt, that these people who are hell-bent on power and are draining everything and have no respect for this reality, with regards to the moral rights of others, are serving, indeed, a dark master. And the thing is, if God is as loving a father as I believe he is, I would not judge my children too heavily for making mistakes, nor will God. Now, I'm not saying this reality is definitely created by a demigod. I'm not saying that this reality was created by Satan, but you better know that for sure God is allowing Satan to control this reality. The negative energy is controlling the place at the moment. We can see it. It doesn't mean that a loving energy is not guiding us from within, is not implanting souls within these human vehicles to try and clean up this mess, which is this reality. But we have to admit that this reality is not so loving when you go out into nature. And you have to admit that those persons who truly succeed in this material plane, those who are in true positions of power, don't seem to be all too loving. They don't seem to care about morality or sacred sites, sacredness. They don't seem to have that in them. It's irrelevant to them. They see themselves as being able to step all over those who are beneath them. Those who are feeling this feeling of love which is coming from God tend to get walked all over by those who don't feel it, because on the physical level they can physically push them down and they tend not to fight back. So, could it be? Would that make sense? To me it does. But we have to accept that by that I mean, does it make sense that a demi-energy, a lesser energy, a child of God, a child of the original creator, created this reality, and in doing so filled it full of faults and mistakes, because he was not the true creator? As it is written, not my idea, as it is written in the Nag Hammadi. But even if that's not the case, why on earth then is Jesus saying that the God of this world is Satan? And who then is Satan? Satan is a son of God who's sent to create this reality, or to govern this reality. Or is it that those who truly embrace this reality, indeed, as we see with these elitist families who have embraced it with everything they have to control it, no less, just as Satan offered Jesus whilst he was fasting, I'll give you control of all nations, and he said, no, I don't want that. I'm better off serving God, just as I feel. I don't want your materiality, I want God. And it just makes you wonder that when you meet these persons, such as these native tribes, etc., on this planet, when I meet them here, they are very centered and peaceful. But being centered and peaceful doesn't necessarily mean that you're attached to this reality. It tends to mean that you're attached to something beyond it. You're attached to perhaps the source of all creation, the true God. Those who are locked inside the Western system are very much attached to needing this material comforts and entertainment to be able to have even happiness. They worship this reality. They worship, by worshipping this reality, the governor of this reality, the God of this reality, which Jesus said is Satan. By needing and hungering entertainment and pleasure, you are worshipping God, which Jesus said was Satan. That God, you're worshipping Satan, the God of this reality. But when I go out and I meet tribespeople, they are not worshipping this reality. They are using this reality to survive, but their joy comes internally from beyond this reality, from the real God, the true God. So from human action alone, it kind of reinforces what the Nag Hammadi says. And from looking in nature, it also reinforces it, because of such a loving God, was it necessary to create things in such a brutal way? Now, arguably, you can say, of course, we needed evolution, etc., etc. But if you're going to look at it that way, in which case you should then say that the Masons have every right to stomp all over you. Because the point of the Masonic belief system is that their ancestors evolved better than ours. Their ancestors were the first ones to build a wall around them, and thus did not have to worry about nature attacking them and the elements, etc., the animals and so on and so forth. They instead were inside their walls, where they could sit and develop and think up new ideas, which is why they became more advanced than, supposedly, you or I, or faster advanced as we began to copy them. This is part of the inner workings of their belief system, that they had the first ancestors to pick up a weapon, and thus their ancestor is grander, and this makes them a grander entity than those that they rule over. And thus they feel, because they have the access to the technology and the power and the money, it's just because they've evolved better. But we can all say that this doesn't feel just, but the time where we see it doesn't feel just is when we meditate and separate from this reality. So what is going on with this reality? Who is in charge of this reality? Now, for sure, if Satan is indeed a creation of God, God will not constantly always judge his children. I know that of every loving father I've ever met. It's a great lesson I learned from my parents. No matter which road I walk, they try to be there for me, and I'm sure God would do the same. They would just try and clean up the mess if I did it wrong, just as God would do with his son. So if Satan is, as Jesus said, the God of this reality, did he play a role in the creation of this reality? Because as the Nag Hammadi says, there was another energy created this, and the true God is trying to fix it by sending his souls into this energy. He wants it to play out. He wants his son to have his free will, but he also doesn't want there to be so much suffering. This is why he is working as he is, through certain persons on the planet, whilst other persons are working through the God of this reality. And thus we have this conflict of interest. We have persons who want to destroy the planet and persons who want to protect the planet. But the ones who want to protect it, they love it. I love this planet. Don't get me wrong. I truly do love it. But I feel I love it because I've been out in it. And when I'm out in it, ironically, I detach from it. Now, this is a beautiful creation, and the original God must be in the demigod that created it, if that is how it is. Which means the original God's ability to create beauty existed within that demigod too. So we are worshipping the true creator when we worship nature, and when we love nature, and when we find it beautiful. But we only do it by silencing ourselves. We only do it by being touched on a higher level. It would seem to me that you only can fall in love with the creation of nature by detaching from it in prayer and meditation and being silent. And it's a funny thing, as I say, because those who love nature, I believe, are loving not the creator of this reality, but the source creator of all things. And those who are hell-bent on having the power and the control of this reality, of buildings and military force and everything else, are actually worshipping the creator of this reality. And this is what I have to start meditating on a lot, because I see it, and if the shoe fits, it makes sense. Those who have power of this system seem to be worshipping the creator of this reality. Those who for sure love nature, etc., and love the beauty of the creation, but want what is best without the whole power and the destruction and the pain and suffering for others, I feel worshipping beyond. I feel they are in tune with another vibrational level than what those others are that are worshipping this reality. And if you think I'm mistaken, I might be mistaken, but, and it's a big but, Jesus said the God of this reality is Satan. And it would appear those who are in charge of our system inside this reality do very much fit the same description as how the mind would conjure the concept of Satan, a disobedient and unloving temptress or tempter. It would appear they've fallen straight into his chest and allowed him to hold onto them tight, whereas the rest of us are repulsed by it and we seek the chest of something far grander. And if the Nag Hammadi is right, and this reality was created by a demigod, and it's this beautiful because they have the fingerprints of the true creator on them, can you imagine what the true creator would be able to create? And that alone means for me that it's worthwhile dwelling and meditating on the teachings of that book, because it opens up a very beautiful space in me, so I presume it will in others. So, much love, guys. Bye.